My husband left me barefoot in the rain, 37 miles from home, just because I asked where the $10,000 went. He said I needed a lesson, but do you know what he didn't realize? I wasn't crying. I was recording. Behind the abandoned gas station, my brother was waiting with a cup of hot coffee. And my lawyer? He was already tracking every move inside the joint accounts. By tomorrow morning, his assets would belong to me. I once thought I was weak. I once believed silence was the way to preserve happiness. But, standing in the rain, my feet trembling, my heart frozen, I understood. Real love never makes you feel small. If you've ever been controlled, belittled, or made to doubt yourself, stay. This story is for you. If you believe no one deserves to be abandoned in a storm, literal or metaphorical, hit follow. Because sometimes, the lesson isn't yours to learn. It belongs to the one who underestimated you. A few minutes earlier, before the heavy rain came down, Amanda sat in the passenger seat, staring at Richard's hands gripping the wheel. His knuckles were white, his jaw locked. "You called my accountant behind my back?" His voice cut through the silence. "You dared to question me?" He did not look at her. His eyes stayed fixed on the dark stretch of highway. To him, her question was not about money. It was about power, and Amanda had crossed a line. She slipped her phone into record mode, the screen glowing faintly in her lap. Every word mattered now. She kept her voice even, careful not to reveal the tremor in her chest. Richard leaned closer, his tone colder. "That is betrayal. You think you get a say in how I manage things? I built this life. You live in it because of me." The air in the car grew heavy. Amanda pressed her palms together, hiding her shaking hands. She did not argue. She let the silence capture his cruelty. Outside, the storm gathered in the distance. Inside, the storm had already broken. Richard's lips curled into a hard smile. "Do you know how far we are from home?" He finally turned to face her. 37 miles, no buses, no trains, and no Uber comes out this far." Amanda's stomach tightened. This was not a moment of anger. It was a plan. He had measured the distance. He had chosen this stop. "You'll walk," Richard said. "Maybe the long road back will remind you who is in charge." His fingers drummed against the steering wheel as if he were amused by his own cruelty. Amanda swallowed the knot in her throat. She thought of the black sky outside, the silence of the empty rest stop. 37 miles in the dark. 37 miles through rain and wind. Her phone was recording every word. Still, her heart pounded against her ribs. The danger was real. It was not only about humiliation. It was about survival. Richard shifted the car into park. He gestured toward the door. "Out! Now!" Amanda's hand hovered over the handle. In that moment, she knew he had not underestimated the miles. He had calculated them, like a man making a ruthless deal. And her life was the price. 3 hours earlier, Morton's steakhouse glowed with warm lights. Amanda sat across from Richard at a table set with polished silver, a glass of wine in her hand. Around them, couples toasted anniversaries and birthdays. To anyone watching, they looked the same. Another pair celebrating love. But beneath the clinking glasses, something darker pulsed. Amanda had asked one question. "Richard, where did the $10,000 go?" Her voice was calm, but her eyes searched his. He set down his fork, his face hardening. "You think you need to know everything I do? You embarrass me with your suspicions." The waiter approached with dessert menus. Richard waved him off. Amanda lowered her gaze, but her chest ached. 10,000 was not pocket change. It was missing, unexplained, and she knew it meant more than numbers. Richard leaned back, arms folded. "Stop digging where you don't belong. I manage the money. You enjoy it. That's how this works." She forced a smile, but her mind replayed his words. Enjoy it. As if her role was to sit quietly while he decided everything. That night, the anniversary celebration ended not with laughter, but with silence. A silence that followed them into the car. As the car rolled away from the city, Amanda's thoughts returned to what she had found 2 nights before. A single pearl earring lying near the edge of her bed. Not hers. She had never owned a pair like it. At first, she told herself it was nothing. Maybe it had fallen from her purse, a mistake, a forgotten trinket. But the more she stared at it, the clearer the truth became. It belonged to someone else. 9. The young assistant who smiled too brightly, who lingered too long at Richard's office door. The missing 10,000. Amanda could almost see it now, strung into jewelry, wrapped in ribbons, handed over as if stolen money could buy devotion. Her fingers clenched in her lap. She said nothing. Not yet. Timing mattered. Richard thrived on control, on winning each small battle. Tonight, she would give him that illusion. The rain began to fall, light at first, then heavier. The wipers moved across the glass, steady and sharp. Amanda stared into the darkness outside, but the image of the earring burned brighter than the road ahead. It was not just about missing money, it was about betrayal in her own home. The rain fell harder as Amanda stepped onto the cracked asphalt. She barely had time to close the door before the car lurched forward. Richard pressed the gas without hesitation. His taillights blurred through the sheets of water, then vanished into the curve of the highway. The silence after the engine faded was unbearable. Only the storm remained, heavy and merciless. The rest stop was nothing more than an abandoned gas station. Its roof sagged. Its windows were boarded shut. A single light flickered above the broken pump, glowing weak and sickly against the black sky. Amanda wrapped her arms around herself, rain soaking through her dress. Wind pushed weeds across the lot, their sharp edges cutting through the night air. She felt stripped of warmth, stripped of safety. 37 miles. Alone. She lifted her chin, but the weight of isolation pressed down like iron. This was what Richard wanted. A wife reduced to silence, shivering and afraid. For a moment, she closed her eyes. The rain struck harder, cold and unforgiving. She had never felt so small, so discarded. Yet, beneath the despair, something else stirred. Resolve. Quiet, but unbroken. A car door clicked in the distance. Amanda's eyes snapped open. From the shadows behind the boarded gas station, a tall figure stepped forward, holding a black umbrella. "Marcus?" she whispered, relief cutting through the storm. Her younger brother crossed the lot quickly, shielding her with the umbrella. In his other hand was a thermos. He pressed it into her palms. Steam rose into the night, rich with the smell of coffee. "You got it all?" Marcus asked, his voice low but steady. Amanda nodded. Her phone was still warm in her pocket, the recording secure. For the first time that night, she breathed fully. She was not alone. Richard believed he had trapped her. He believed 37 miles of storm and fear would break her spirit. But Marcus had been waiting all along, just beyond Richard's sight. Amanda clutched the thermos, feeling its heat spread through her frozen fingers. The rain still fell, but the weight on her chest lightened. "Yes," she said, "every word." Marcus's eyes darkened. 3 years of watching him control you. Tonight ends it. Together, they turned toward the shadows, away from the empty lot. The plan was finally in motion. As they walked toward Marcus's truck, Amanda thought back over the months behind them. 8 months of secrecy. 8 months of careful steps, each one hidden under Richard's nose. It had started with a single decision: to record everything. Every insult, every threat, every manipulation. Her phone had become her shield, storing hours of Richard's cruelty. Marcus had installed cameras under the pretense of security upgrades. Silent witnesses hidden in corners of their home. Valentina, a forensic accountant, had followed the money trail line by line. Transfers disguised as business expenses. Withdrawals moved through accounts Richard thought untouchable. Rebecca, their attorney, had built the legal case brick by brick. Each document filed quietly. Each motion prepared in secret. Amanda had played her part too. Smiles at dinner, polite nods in public. She gave Richard no reason to suspect the walls closing in. Tonight was not chaos. Tonight was the final step of a design. Richard thought he had chosen the battleground. But in truth, Amanda had set every piece in place. 8 months of fear had been transformed into 8 months of power. And now, the storm outside matched the storm about to fall on Richard. Inside the warmth of Marcus's truck, Amanda pulled out her phone. She scrolled to the fresh recording, pressed play, and set it on the console between them. Richard's voice filled the small space. Cold, sharp, unmistakable. "You need to learn your place. Walking home will remind you." The words cut through the steady drumming of rain on the roof. Amanda's chest tightened as she listened. Each sentence was proof. Each command was a weapon that now turned back on him. Marcus's hands gripped the wheel, knuckles pale. He shook his head. 3 years. I've watched him strip you down piece by piece. But this... His voice broke off. Amanda closed her eyes. For too long she had doubted her own strength. Tonight, the recording gave her clarity. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't weakness, it was evidence. The truck rocked gently as the wind howled outside. Inside, the air carried a different weight. Certainty. Amanda stopped the playback, slipping the phone back into her pocket. He thinks I'll beg him tomorrow. He thinks I'll crawl back. Marcus looked at her, eyes steady. He has no idea. Now, we have enough to end him. Amanda's second phone buzzed. A message from Valentina appeared. Simple, but devastating. Another transfer confirmed. Cayman Islands. He moved $30,000 this afternoon. Amanda read it twice, her breath catching. $30,000. Just one more drop in the ocean Richard had been siphoning away. Valentina had warned her. The pattern was clear. Small withdrawals at first, then larger ones, each routed through shell companies. Offshore accounts stacked like Russian dolls, designed to confuse, to conceal. But the numbers told their own story. Millions, drained over months. Assets hidden out of reach. Amanda's eyes burned. This was not only betrayal, it was theft. He had been stealing not just from her, but from clients, from families who had trusted him. Marcus glanced at her screen, his jaw clenched. He's not just cruel. He's criminal. Amanda nodded slowly. And we can prove it. She tucked the phone away, her pulse steadying. For years, Richard's wealth had been the symbol of his control. The cars, the house, the accounts she was forbidden to question. Now, those same numbers would destroy him. The rain battered the windshield. But Amanda no longer felt the storm as a cage. It was the sound of justice approaching. Marcus opened his laptop in the dim truck light. He pulled up a folder labeled Security Feed. Amanda braced herself as the video began to play. There was Richard, stepping into their living room, jacket tossed carelessly on the chair, and behind him, Nyan, young, carefree, wearing Amanda's silk robe, the robe from her honeymoon. Amanda's breath caught. The sight was worse than any suspicion. Her body stiffened as Nyan curled against Richard on the couch, laughing at something on his phone. Richard leaned close, his voice sharp even in intimacy. She actually believed me. A few more months and I'll have everything transferred. Then we're gone. Nyan's giggle echoed like glass breaking. What about the prenup? It won't matter. Amanda won't fight. She doesn't have the spine. Amanda closed her eyes, pain burning through her chest. It was not just infidelity. It was mockery. In her house, in her robe, on the furniture she had chosen, Marcus stopped the clip. His hand hovered, waiting. Amanda exhaled slowly. Humiliation turned to fire in her veins. She opened her eyes again, steady now. Good, she whispered. Let him keep talking. The more he says, the more he buries himself. The next clip was darker. Richard alone in the kitchen at 2 a.m. He poured milk into a glass, then added a small white pill, stirring until it dissolved. Amanda remembered the taste. Slightly bitter, almost hidden. He had called it a vitamin. Later, he called it something for her anxiety. Night after night, she had swallowed his lies along with the drink. And when her memory blurred, when conversation slipped like water through her fingers, he smiled. You're imagining things, Amanda. You're too emotional. She began writing notes to herself on scraps of paper. Dinner plans, calls with her mother, details she feared were slipping away, notes she later found torn, missing, or in the trash. Richard's voice from the recording cut in again. The key is to make her believe she's losing her mind. Deny. Contradict. She'll fold. Amanda gripped the console, nails biting into her palms. Her breath shook, but she did not look away. Marcus whispered, He tried to erase you. Amanda's voice was steady now. No, he only erased the man I thought I married. The rest of me, he'll never touch again. By dawn, Amanda was no longer on the highway. Marcus drove carefully into the city, avoiding routes Richard might take. At the side entrance of a small hotel, he parked. Amanda slipped out, clutching a small duffel bag Marcus had prepared weeks before. Inside were essentials: clothes, documents, a phone registered under her maiden name. The lobby clerk greeted her with a tired smile. Amanda's voice cracked just enough as she gave her ID. My husband left me, she whispered. The clerk's eyes softened, no questions asked. The hotel record would show what Amanda needed it to. A shaken woman, checking in alone, rain-soaked, fragile. But behind her damp hair and trembling hands, she carried control. In the quiet of her room, she locked the door, chained it twice, and exhaled. The storm still raged outside, but inside she allowed herself a moment of stillness. She pulled the phone from her pocket. The recording was safe. The plan was alive. Richard believed she was wandering the roads, broken. In truth, she was here, safe, prepared, and one step ahead. The game he thought he was playing was already lost. Across town, Richard poured himself a drink. His tie hung loose, his face smug. He believed the storm was still swallowing Amanda whole. In his mind, she was out there somewhere, drenched and humiliated, walking mile after endless mile toward home. By morning, she would crawl back to him, begging for forgiveness, eager to restore her place. He lifted the glass, savoring his imagined victory. On his phone, a message glowed from Nan. "Did you do it?" He typed back. "Done. She'll learn now." Richard reclined in his chair, convinced of his control. The thought of Amanda's shivering body pleased him. In his world, cruelty was discipline. Betrayal was strength. What he never saw was the hotel room, the second phone, the files stacked neatly on a desk. He did not know Valentina had already frozen accounts. He did not know Rebecca was filing emergency motions by morning. Richard believed he had stripped Amanda of power. The truth, she had been building power in silence for months. While he toasted his own cleverness, the walls he built were already cracking. The next call came not from Valentina or Rebecca, but from Jennifer, Amanda's younger sister. Her voice trembled on the line. "I need to explain." Amanda listened as the words spilled out. Jennifer owed tens of thousands in gambling debts. Richard had found out. He had offered to pay them off if she gave him details about the family. "He wanted to know everything," Jennifer whispered. "Mom's health, Dad's will, the trust fund. I thought I was protecting you. I thought he cared." Amanda's grip tightened on the phone. Her sister, blood of her blood, selling secrets to the very man tearing her life apart. The betrayal cut deeper than Richard's affair. Family was supposed to be safe ground, yet even that had been poisoned. Tears stung her eyes, but her voice was cold. "You handed him the knife he used to gut me." Jennifer sobbed on the other end. "I'm sorry, Amanda. I didn't know what he was planning." Amanda ended the call, silence flooding the room. Her heart was heavy, but clarity returned. Richard's reach had spread into every corner of her life, but so had her resolve, and not even blood could shake it now. Amanda sat across from her mother in the quiet of the care facility. Rain tapped gently against the window, softer than the storm outside but heavy with memory. Her mother reached into a small drawer and pulled out a brass key. Her hands trembled, yet her eyes were sharp. "Your father saw him for what he was," she said. "That's why he created the trust. $2 million, hidden, protected, only for you." Amanda blinked. The number echoed in her chest. For years, she thought her father had left modest means, but he had planned more. He had planned protection. Her mother's grip tightened around her hand. "Richard has been circling it. He tried to forge documents. The bank called me. We stopped him, but he won't stop." Amanda closed her fist around the key. Anger and gratitude mingled, heavy and raw. Her father's foresight was now her lifeline. Richard had wanted to own every piece of her existence, but this money meant survival. The storm outside shifted, wind rattling the glass. Amanda stood, the key warm in her palm. Her father's voice seemed to linger in the silence. "He will try to take everything. Don't let him." The next call came from David, Richard's business partner. His voice carried fatigue as though every word cost him. "Amanda, it's worse than you think," he said. "Richard wasn't just moving your money. He's been targeting clients, especially the elderly, convincing them they were forgetful, gaslighting them into signing over accounts." Amanda's throat tightened. She pictured Eleanor Hartley, a widow who always spoke of her grandchildren. She remembered the kindness in her eyes at fund dinners. David's voice dropped lower. He drained her of $800,000, told her she was slipping into dementia when she questioned the withdrawals. Amanda pressed her hand against her chest. Richard hadn't just betrayed a wife. He had preyed on the vulnerable, building wealth on their fear. The mask of respectability, his hedge fund, his polished suits, the dinners at Morton's, was nothing more than a shield for theft. David paused. "I have recordings. I'll give them to the authorities. I should have done it sooner." Amanda's jaw tightened. Richard's cruelty was no longer private. It reached into homes, emptied lives, and destroyed futures. He had built his image on prestige. Now the truth was spreading, and the image was crumbling. Rebecca spread files across the hotel room table. The stacks of documents were organized, color-coded, precise. Amanda sat beside her, heart pounding. "What if he twists everything?" she asked. Rebecca looked up, steady. He will try. Men like him always do, but we have evidence. Audio, financial records, witness testimony. We'll lead with the recording. His own words will condemn him. Amanda nodded. She had faced Richard in boardrooms, in dinner parties, across their kitchen table, but tomorrow she would face him in court. Marcus entered, dropping another box of surveillance tapes. "Every angle is covered," he said. Rebecca leaned closer to Amanda. "The judge will look for strength. When you walk in, you must be composed, not broken. I'll ask you simple questions. Answer them with clarity. Let his voice, not yours, show the cruelty." Amanda inhaled slowly. The fear in her chest remained, but something new steadied her spine. Preparation, strategy, truth. Rebecca placed a hand on hers. "This isn't just survival anymore. It's justice." Amanda looked at the stacks of paper, the weight of 8 months of planning. Tomorrow she would no longer be silent. Tomorrow she would stand. The courtroom was cold, lined with dark wood and marble. Amanda sat beside Rebecca, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across the aisle, Richard adjusted his tie, forcing a smirk, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. His attorney leaned close, whispering rapidly. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Coleman entered, her gaze sharp, her presence commanding silence. Rebecca stood, calm, certain. She tapped a button on the small speaker. The recording filled the courtroom. Richard's voice echoed, steady and cruel. "You need to learn your place. Walking home will remind you." The words hung heavy. Each syllable cut through the air like a blade. Amanda kept her eyes forward, refusing to look at him. But in her periphery, she saw his face blanch, his mouth tighten. The room stilled. No cough, no whisper, just the undeniable evidence of his own voice. Rebecca continued, presenting documents one by one. Transfers, offshore accounts, all tied to Richard's name. Judge Coleman leaned forward, expression darkening. "Mr. Mitchell, is this your voice?" Richard shifted in his chair, lips parting, but no sound came. For the first time, the man who demanded control found himself stripped of it. The heavy doors at the back of the courtroom opened with a sharp echo. 2 men in dark suits stepped in, followed by a federal agent Amanda recognized from the news. Whispers rippled through the gallery. The judge raised a brow but did not interrupt. The lead agent spoke clearly. "Your Honor, we apologize for the disruption. We have a warrant for Richard Mitchell's arrest on charges of wire fraud and embezzlement." Gasps filled the chamber. Richard's attorney shot to his feet. "This is irregular. My client has not been—" "Sit down, Mr. Blackwood," Judge Coleman cut in. "The court will hear them." Amanda turned her gaze slowly. Richard's confidence shattered. His hands shook as he slammed the table. "This is absurd! I built this firm. I provided for her." The agents moved closer, calm but firm. Rebecca leaned toward Amanda, her whisper steady. "This is bigger than family court now." Richard pointed across the room, his face red, his voice breaking. "You set me up!" "This is all her fault!" Judge Coleman's gavel cracked. "Enough. Mr. Mitchell, you will control yourself." But it was too late. The world had seen his mask fall. The storm he created was finally consuming him. The courtroom doors opened again. Nayen stepped forward, her heels clicking against the floor. Gone was the glitter, the designer dress. She wore plain clothes, her hair tied back. Her eyes darted between Amanda and Richard. She carried a small folder. Hands trembling, she faced the judge. I have recordings, messages, proof of what he told me." Richard's head snapped toward her, disbelief flashing into rage. "Sit down. Don't say a word." But Nayen didn't stop. She held up her phone. On the speaker, Richard's voice spilled out, bragging, laughing, detailing how he drained accounts, explaining how Amanda was too naive to notice, promising Nayen a future in Costa Rica. The gallery murmured. Every word struck like a hammer against Richard's defense. Amanda sat still, her heart pounding, her eyes fixed on the woman who once wore her robe. Richard sank back into his chair, lips moving, but no words escaping. The betrayal he thought he controlled had turned on him. His mistress, once his secret ally, had become the final nail in his coffin. For the first time, Richard was silent. And silence in that room meant defeat. By morning, the story was everywhere. Newspapers lined kiosks with bold headlines. "Finance star falls from grace." Beneath it, a photo of Richard in handcuffs, his face twisted in fury as agents led him away. The news anchors repeated his name with venom. Once a rising star in hedge funds, now facing charges of fraud, embezzlement, and spousal abandonment. Amanda watched the report from her hotel room, the screen glowing across her tired face. Clips of Richard at gala dinners flashed, shaking hands with politicians, toasting at charity events, smiling for cameras, all paired now with the image of chains around his wrists. The humiliation was total. His empire of respect crumbled in a single night. Amanda pressed her lips together, not in joy but in solemn recognition. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was public. His cruelty had become a spectacle, and the world was watching. For years, he lived for reputation. Now, that very hunger devoured him. The screen lingered on his mugshot. Hollow eyes, disheveled hair, a man unmasked. Amanda turned away, whispering to herself, "This is what power without conscience looks like." The phone rang again. This time it was Margaret, Richard's mother. Her voice was sharp, filled with venom. "You've destroyed my son. All because of your jealousy. You wanted his money. Admit it." Amanda held the phone steady, saying nothing. Margaret's accusations spilled on. Gold digger, manipulator, liar. But Amanda had no need to argue. The truth was everywhere now. Recordings, bank documents, federal warrants. Margaret's words sounded hollow against the weight of evidence. On the news that evening, reporters replayed the courtroom clip of Richard shouting, "You set me up!" His own outburst exposed his guilt more than Amanda ever could. Margaret's tirade ended with a hiss. "You'll regret this. Everyone will see you for what you are." Amanda ended the call, her hand trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Family could deny. Family could protect. But truth cut deeper than loyalty. Margaret would never admit her son was a predator, but the world already knew. Amanda looked out the window, city lights glimmering against the dark. She whispered to herself, "Let her believe what she wants. The evidence speaks louder than blood." Later that night, Jennifer stood at Amanda's door. Her face was pale, her eyes red. She carried a small envelope. When Amanda opened the door, Jennifer burst into tears. "I'm sorry. I was weak. I thought I was saving myself. I betrayed you." Amanda's jaw tightened. The memory of her sister's betrayal still burned. But Jennifer kept speaking. "I printed every email, every message, everything Richard asked me for. It's all here. I want to make it right." The envelope shook in her hands. Amanda took it slowly, eyes scanning the papers inside. Evidence, more proof of Richard's reach and Jennifer's guilt. Tears streaked down Jennifer's cheeks. "I don't deserve forgiveness, but please, let me help." Amanda studied her sister. She saw both desperation and sincerity. "You can help," Amanda said quietly, "but things won't ever be the same." Jennifer nodded, sobbing harder. "I know." Amanda closed the door gently after her. For the first time, she felt both anger and compassion twisted together. Blood had betrayed her, but blood had also returned, carrying truth. The wound would not vanish, but perhaps, over time, it might scar instead of bleed. The courthouse steps loomed large. Reporters clustered at the entrance, cameras flashing in the gray morning light. Richard had hired a shark, a lawyer with a reputation for tearing cases apart. He strode into the building with his new counsel at his side, trying to project strength. Amanda arrived moments later. She wore a navy suit, sharp lines, deliberate choice. The same one Richard once mocked, saying women looked too aggressive in clothes like that. She walked through the marble hallways, every step steady. Marcus at her side, Rebecca close behind, carrying the briefcase thick with evidence. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Richard's lawyer smirked, whispering strategies. Richard himself glared across the aisle, his eyes burning with fury and fear. Amanda lifted her chin, refusing to shrink. For years, he had defined her as fragile, obedient, replaceable. Today, she defined herself. The bailiff's voice cut through the air. "All rise!" Judge Coleman entered, her gaze as sharp as ever. Amanda took her seat, eyes forward. The storm was not outside anymore. It was here, in this room, and she was ready to face it. The jury filed back into the courtroom, their faces solemn. Amanda's pulse pounded in her ears. The foreman stood, a single sheet of paper in his hand. The silence was unbearable. "On count 1, guilty." Amanda's breath caught. "On count 2, guilty." Each word struck like a drumbeat. On all counts, guilty. The final word echoed through the chamber. Richard's shoulders sagged. His head dropped onto the table, hair falling forward to hide his face. The man who once towered in power now folded under judgment. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. Rebecca placed a hand on Amanda's arm, steadying her. Amanda didn't smile. She didn't flinch. She simply watched as the verdict sealed his fate. Richard had built walls of arrogance, of lies, of stolen wealth. Now, every brick collapsed. The jury returned to their seats, and the judge nodded gravely. The next step would be sentencing. But already, Amanda felt the tide had turned. Justice had spoken in one clear voice. Guilty. And in that single word, years of silence were broken. The courtroom gathered again for sentencing. The air was tense, heavy with anticipation. Judge Coleman's voice was firm. Richard Mitchell, you targeted the vulnerable. You betrayed your clients. You abused your wife. You have shown no remorse. For these crimes, this court sentences you to 96 months in federal prison. No parole. No early release. 8 years. The words hung in the air like thunder. Richard shot to his feet, face red with fury. You destroyed me, he shouted across the aisle, his finger stabbing the air at Amanda. Amanda stood slowly. Her voice was calm, but it carried through the room. No, Richard. You destroyed yourself. Gasps spread across the chamber. Richard's attorney tugged at his sleeve, but the fight drained from him. His head dropped again, shoulders caving in. The bailiffs approached, securing his wrists in iron cuffs. He didn't resist this time. He shuffled forward, chains clinking with each step. Amanda exhaled, her hands steady at her sides. For the first time in years, his voice no longer controlled the room. The gavel struck. Judgment was final. Months later, Amanda walked through the halls of a renovated brick building in Minneapolis. The walls smelled faintly of fresh paint. A new brass plaque gleamed near the entrance. The Phoenix Foundation. She touched it lightly, pride swelling in her chest. The settlement money, her father's trust, and the whistleblower reward had been poured into this place. A sanctuary for women trapped in financial abuse. A shield for those who thought they had none. Marcus checked the new security system, ensuring panic buttons were in place. Valentina organized files in a conference room stacked with casework. Rebecca reviewed intake forms, ready to defend the next woman who walked through the door. Amanda paused at her office window. Outside, the city buzzed. Inside, quiet hope filled the halls. The pain Richard inflicted had not been wasted. It had been transformed into something lasting, something stronger. Here, broken women would walk in, trembling. And here, they would leave standing taller. Amanda whispered to herself, "From ashes, we rise." The storm that once drowned her had given birth to shelter. One rainy afternoon, Amanda sat in a small group room inside the foundation. Around her were women with fresh tears on their cheeks. Women who had once felt as she had, trapped, erased, afraid. Now they were safe. One mother held her child close. Another woman clutched paperwork granting her freedom from a hidden debt. A teenager smiled faintly as she spoke of starting college. Amanda's eyes blurred with emotion. Each face was proof that suffering could bloom into survival. Later, she stood by the window. Rain streaked the glass, heavy and relentless. She closed her eyes, remembering the night she stood abandoned at a rest stop, 37 miles from home. The cold, the silence, the sense of worthlessness. She opened her eyes again, looking at the women who now laughed softly together. The rain outside no longer felt cruel. It felt cleansing. Amanda whispered, "You tried to bury me. Instead, you planted a seed." Her pain had ripened into something greater than vengeance. It had become strength multiplied, shared, and alive. He thought abandoning her in the storm would teach a lesson. But from that storm, she rose. She found her own strength and then used it to shelter others. "When someone tells you to know your place," Amanda's voice said softly, "remember this. Your place is where you choose to stand." The women she helped carried that truth with them. Mothers who once feared for their children now smiled with relief. Survivors of hidden debts held documents proving their freedom. Young women once silenced by manipulation now spoke with steady voices. Amanda watched them, her heart full. She remembered the night on the highway, the rain pounding, the sense of being discarded. That night had been meant to break her. Instead, it became the spark. Richard thought cruelty was power, But cruelty always devours itself. What endures is love, resilience, and truth. Her voice lingered with quiet conviction. From pain, we rise. From storms, we build shelter. No one can erase that. If this story touched you, share it. Subscribe to hear more voices rising from silence, more women standing tall. Together, we can spread strength to those still waiting for their own dawn.